How did Jesus enter the world, the journey from the manger to the empty tomb, and why this story still moves us today? Why would a man born in a small corner of the world become the center of human history? Have you ever wondered, who is Jesus really? Why would a man born in a small distant land become the name whispered by billions in prayer every single day? Why do so many people who have never met him, never touched those hands, still feel comfort simply by speaking his name? And more importantly, why did he come into this world? What could be great enough for one who belongs to the glory of heaven to willingly step into a world filled with danger, suffering, and tears? What could be deep enough for him to accept the manger, then the cross, and everything between those 2 points? Today, you and I will step into that journey. Not as an ancient story we listen to and forget, but as a path that shaped empires, changed human destinies, and still touches exhausted hearts in our time. From the moment he arrived in the silence of a winter night, to his final breath on the hill of Golgotha, and then the moment the whole world seemed to hold its breath, when the tomb was found empty on the third morning. Stay until the end, because once you understand how he entered this world and why he never truly left the way we think, you may never see this story the same way again. A yes in the night, and heaven begins to touch earth. Long ago, in a quiet village nestled among olive hills and whispering winds, there lived a young woman named Mary. Mary was not a princess, not wealthy. There was nothing about her that made the world pay attention. She was simply an ordinary young woman, sweeping the house in the morning, carrying water at noon, humming gentle songs in the evening, with a softness in her spirit like early dawn. But heaven knew her name. And then one night, as moonlight silvered every rooftop, Mary's room suddenly filled with a strange and holy light. Not wind, not fire, not a dream. A messenger from the realm of light appeared, the angel Gabriel. The radiance around him felt like sunrise stepping through a curtain. And the angel called her name softly, like music, Mary. You have been chosen. You will conceive a child who will bring light back into the world. Imagine that moment, a young woman in the middle of the night, hearing words beyond human understanding. Afraid, of course. Confused, absolutely. But deep within her heart, she spoke a single word that history would later call the bravest yes, yes. Somewhere else, Joseph, the man engaged to Mary, was also warned in a dream. Do not be afraid. This child is from God, and you will be the one who protects the miracle. Sometimes miracles do not arrive with trumpets. Sometimes they arrive as a quiet responsibility to protect something sacred in a world that may misunderstand it and harm it. Bethlehem, when the world is too crowded for a miracle. Then a decree spread across the land. Everyone must return to their hometown to be registered. So Joseph took Mary, carrying heaven's promise within her, on a long journey to Bethlehem. They traveled through fields, down dark roads, through nights when the sky seemed brighter than usual, as if even the stars were watching. When they finally arrived, Bethlehem was overflowing. The inns were full, the doors were shut. Warm lights behind windows were not for them. The world seemed too busy to notice that a miracle was knocking at its door. But miracles do not wait for invitations. An elderly man led them to a simple stable. And there, among straw and the warm breath of animals, Mary gave birth. No trumpets, no kings kneeling. Only the cry of a newborn, small, fragile, yet strong enough to touch the edge of eternity. And heaven could not remain silent. A strange star burned brightly in the sky. Angels sang in the night. And shepherds, the most ordinary people of all, were the first to hear the good news: do not be afraid. Today, joy has entered the world. They ran with pounding hearts and wide-open eyes, kneeling before a child who one day would carry the weight of the world with love. That night, it was as if heaven leaned down and kissed the earth. Nazareth. The child grows in silence like light hidden in a small village. Nazareth was so small that everyone knew the sound of everyone else's footsteps. Children played in dusty streets. Mothers ground flour at dawn. Fathers returned home with calloused hands. And in one ordinary corner of that village, the extraordinary was growing. Jesus was not different because he tried to appear different. He laughed, climbed stones like any child. But there was something about him. When he smiled, it was as if sorrow paused to listen. When he touched an injured bird, it seemed to remember that wings were made to fly. Mary watched her son with quiet wonder, and Joseph taught him the craft of carpentry, how to hold wood, how to smooth splinters, how to shape something rough into something useful. Those hands grew strong, but never harsh. He shaped wood the way one day he would shape human hearts, patiently, gently, and with love. The temple. A word from a 12-year-old boy, and a mystery begins to open. When Jesus was 12, his family went up to Jerusalem. The city was loud, crowded with pilgrims, voices calling out, prayers rising, footsteps everywhere. Inside the temple, teachers of the law were speaking. The boy walked in, listened, and then spoke. His voice was gentle, but his words carried depth far beyond his age. The scholars were amazed. They questioned him, and he answered as if he remembered something that adults had forgotten. When Mary and Joseph finally found him, he said something that left them unsettled. "Why were you looking for me? Didn't you know I had to be in my Father's house?" They did not understand. Not yet. But the light within him kept growing like dawn, preparing to break. The Jordan River, when heaven opens and the mission begins. Years passed. The boy became a man. One day he left the carpenter's bench and went to the Jordan River, where a wild prophet named John the Baptist was preaching. Crowds gathered. And when Jesus stepped forward, it was as if the river itself fell silent. John looked at him, and his eyes softened. "This is the one we have been waiting for." Jesus stepped into the water, and when he came up, the heavens opened. A dove descended, and a voice spoke with the weight of eternity, "This is my beloved Son." From that moment, the world was never the same. He traveled through villages, healing the blind, stilling storms, feeding crowds with a few loaves. But he did not come only to perform miracles. He came for hearts, for the forgotten, for those judged, for the wounded. He called fishermen tax collectors, women with shattered pasts. Not like a king choosing servants, but like a shepherd calling a lost sheep, "Follow me." And they followed because his voice made them feel like they had finally come home. When light spreads, darkness begins to stir. But where there is great light, darkness begins to tremble. Religious leaders watched him with jealousy. Political power watched him with fear. Some hearts softened, but others hardened like stone. And within his closest circle, a storm began to form in silence. Judas, whose eyes were drawn to silver, became entangled in fear and greed, like dark vines tightening around his soul. Still, Jesus walked calmly onward, like a lantern in a deep forest. He spoke of forgiveness, making the proud uncomfortable. He spoke of love, making the cold-hearted uneasy. He spoke of a kingdom not built of stone, but of transformed hearts. The Last Supper. Bread broken and sorrow turning into prophecy. That night, the room was warm with candlelight. Bread was broken. A cup was lifted. Jesus looked at every face, those who loved him most and the one who would betray him. In his eyes, there was no rage, only a sorrow too deep for words. Then he went to the Garden of Gethsemane. Beneath olive trees, he prayed alone. Tears fell like night rain. The burden of humanity pressed upon his chest. And then, torches tore through the darkness. Soldiers arrived. Judas stepped forward, a kiss quick, soft, yet heavy with regret. Jesus was arrested like a criminal, though those hands had only healed. He was dragged through cold hallways, though his words had warmed thousands of hearts. And he did not resist, as if every step had been chosen long ago. The cross, when love paid in blood. That morning did not feel peaceful. The sky looked pale, as if it already knew what was coming. He was mocked. He was judged. Crowds who once followed him now shouted in confusion. The sentence was spoken. He carried the cross through streets that once echoed with his teaching. Wood scraped his shoulder, yet he kept walking each step, whispering, "Love, love, love." On Golgotha, they nailed him between two criminals. Nails pierced hands that had healed. A spear struck the side that had comforted the broken. And he did not curse. He forgave. In that moment, the earth shook. Stones broke, the sky darkened, and the temple curtain tore in two, as if to say the distance between God and humanity had been ripped away. Then, silence. He was placed in a borrowed tomb, sealed shut. Those who loved him fell into grief as if the breath had been stolen from their lungs. 3 days when silence weighs like the whole world. 3 days passed. Each day felt like a lifetime. There are pains time cannot heal quickly, only pains we endure. They thought it was over. But stories like his do not end in silence. The third morning, the empty tomb, and the moment the world was rewritten. Before sunrise, the earth trembled. The stone rolled away, not by human hands, but by heaven's gentle command. Light poured in like victorious dawn. An angel appeared blazing like fire in white robes. "Why do you seek the living among the dead?" And then he stepped out, alive, radiant, impossible to imprison in stone. His wounds shone like jewels of victory. When Mary Magdalene heard him speak her name, her tears turned into laughter. When the disciples saw him, fear melted into wonder. When the doubter touched his hands, faith bloomed like spring after a long winter. Death lost. Darkness failed. And the story reached the deepest human fear, the fear of losing everything and having no hope left. From the manger to the empty tomb, and the story is still being written in you. From a small manger to an empty tomb, Jesus entered the world like dawn touching the edge of night. His road was not easy, not gentle, but every step from Bethlehem to Nazareth, from Galilee to Golgotha, was for humanity. And this story is not only written on ancient pages, it lives in hearts that dare to believe light can overcome darkness. After hearing this story, what do you feel most clearly in your heart? Peace, emotion, or an unanswered question? Which moment touched you most? The manger, the cross, or the empty tomb, and why? In your life right now, are you walking through any darkness? And do you believe light is still ahead?